Joe Marino in studio right now. Joseph, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Okay, so you certainly tweeted out the end of last week that that's just a $700,000 mistake.
What are you, President Trump? You go right to Twitter when you... Just kidding.
I've been talking about this well before Twitter, I'll tell you that. When the mayor came out and gave his budget presentation, it's just something didn't ring right? So first of all, he essentially just kind of laid out a plan that says how to explain away a tax increase for dummies. Like if you bought a book at Barnes & Noble and you said, how do you explain away a tax increase? He gave the 4 pillars that everyone gives ever, which is, pretty par for the course. But one of the things that stuck out was he said that the pension increases, because he said everything was a mandate. He couldn't, he had no control over it. And he said the pension increase was $1.1 million, but our payroll only went up $500,000, which would mean the pension contribution that the state asked for would have went up by a ton, almost exponentially. So when you look at it, though, the pension increase that the state asked for actually went down. We went down from 24% for police and fire to 23%, and maybe 14% to 12% for everyone else. So that
was your red flag.
That just, struck me odd. Mm-hmm. So when I caught that, I called the comptroller's office. I talked to Samantha Colosimo-Testa, who did a lot of homework on this. And it turns out that they miscalculated or budgeted in error $700,000 last year, and they're trying to make up for it this year. But by doing that, they're actually asking the taxpayer to pay for their mistake.
So the mistake was made in the comptroller's office?
No, it was made in the budget.
But wouldn't it be up to the comptroller's office to find the mistake?
Would find the mistake inside the pension. They should really have had their eye on the prize, because they're the ones that get the bill. When you you actually get a physical bill from the comptroller to say how much you owe in pension costs.
So this was an error from last year.
It's an error from last year
that is now discovered. So I'll ask you, why didn't the council catch it?
Yeah, no, and that's a good point, right? The council has their eyes on the budget too. But look, when you get these things, we don't generally get the bills from the comptroller's office. We get a little bit of trust, and then when the budget's going through and they're digging into it, E&A has an opportunity to look at all that stuff. That's really not, in the council's purview to go digging into those government-to-government bills.
Do you believe this is a mistake of, I don't want to use the word incompetence, but I guess what level mistake? Do you believe it's a mistake, or do you believe that this is something that was done for political reasons?
Well, a little bit of both, right? So I don't believe that anybody... I don't think that this mistake was done with maliciousness.
Okay.
No, I don't. I really don't. I think it was just a little bit of lack of oversight.
Okay.
You got your eye on a prize of, a million other things that have nothing to do with the city. You're talking about, your 6-7 months last year was completely, the mayor working on his reelection, trying to get reelected. That completely decimates your ability to do work for the city. But once you found out, and to go out there and give this presentation to every neighborhood group that there is to say that, look, we have no control over this. I can't believe it. Our pension costs went up $1.1 million. Normally, people wouldn't look at that because pension have been going up. So to say that to people was trickery. I think that it was...
So you think that was knowingly done?
I think that was absolutely knowingly done. And what you're doing is you're telling people, again, that's why I say that quip of... how to raise taxes for dummies. There's a little yellow book at Barnes & Noble to show
so there was
no one asked for pension costs.
What was the mistake?
Yeah, the mistake is that the pension costs last year were $700,000 over what we budgeted for. So let's say they were $800,000 last year. We budgeted for $100,000. Or let's say they were $1 million. We budgeted for $300,000. So that was the mistake. Now they caught the mistake, and then they put it in our budget this year. So in other words, we should have had a $700,000 increase last year.
And you feel that, it would have come last year, but you could have budgeted for it. You would have been able to plan over.
We
now
had a 0% last year, right? And that's what I say about this budget, too. And that's what's kind of odd about every time I say something, the mayor deflects with its politics. Never answers the question. He'll say, well, there's Joe Marino being Joe Marino again. All I'm trying to do here is hold people accountable for what they're doing for the taxpayer. And then he'll say that it's politics, or he'll say it's trickery, or that I have a crystal ball and I should be playing the lottery. Those things are cute and clever when you're saying that. And then he'll go and deflect to say, well, I sold 11 commercial properties. Well, really, we have $1 million in pilot programs on our books right now.
So there really never was a surplus when we were talking about the surplus.
There was never really a surplus.
A real surplus.
No, of course not. And it was because of accounting errors that occurred, and we're trying to take it out on people now, and that I won't allow. And that's why right now we have budget amendments that total about bring our total down to 1.6%. Because that should be the city's mistake that they should pay for, not the taxpayer.
Well, we are. I mean,
this is
I
my
say
point.
we.
This is my. You did come out and say, I don't think the taxpayers should have to pay for this.
Right.
Well, the city should have to pay for it.
Right.
Well, the city gets its money from.
What are they going to dock everybody's pay at City Hall?
Is the mayor going to? How do you?
So here's how you can expand on the 144 characters that tweet implied. What I mean is, when we keep on going out and saying how great everything is, and we call these surpluses, and we put these into this little fake surplus bank, they always say it's not a real surplus, we don't have that cash. They're put in this surplus bank, or a general fund. Take it out of that general fund. It should have never went in there last year, so it shouldn't be in there this year. So let's take it out and not charge the taxpayer to keep that fund balance where it is. And that's why when I say it's a political budget and a preparation for next year, they're trying to overinflate the surplus that it doesn't belong. So that's why the city taxpayer should not have to suffer.
Can you, I hate to do this, can you explain again the surplus? Because not the surplus, the accounting error. Because it would seem to me like we would have just paid it last year. It's not like it actually cost. It actually cost the city anything.
You got a problem with the American flag?
Sorry,
I think you're.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, but what you're saying is, if it was caught last year, you would have had a slight tax increase.
Or we would have been prepared for it and lowered something somewhere else.
Right.
Whatever.
You've been able to. I mean, I'm assuming that's what you're saying.
That is.
You would have had a year to plan for this. You wouldn't have been caught with your pants down.
Right. At a time when we're giving a 7.8 to people. Right. So let me try not to over-explain it, because it really does get lost in the weeds when you talk about stuff like that. So if you put a budgetary number into a budget, it's just a preparation. It's just a goal that you'd like to achieve. Right? When you have billing and insurance costs and things that you know what they're going to be, when you make an error on those, that really causes a problem. So this $700,000, it should have been in the budget last year. Now, we presented the people as 0%. We could do that for everything. We could say that there's no payroll for the police department and then budget and then find out that, hey, by the way, we paid a bunch of police officers.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we did with this pension cost. We said it was an amount much less than what it was. So, look. Last year, you had a lot of people running that were pretty favorable to a particular issue that could have went on for the mayor. The comptroller was running last year, so it didn't really look good.
It would have been a completely different climate.
It didn't look good to have having a 0% and that election going on was a lot better off, let's say, than having a $700,000.
Again,
So you say it's malicious then? You say it's done accidentally, but when you say it that way, it sounds like it was intentional.
Yeah, because right, and that's a good point, right? And I don't mean it exactly like that, but it smacks of that.
Did they hide it till this year to get through the election?
No, without a doubt, no. But it smacks of that. These yo-yo budgets smack of that. So when that happens,
it's convenient to have 0%.
Right, and I don't. But again, I don't feel that happened. But if someone were to look at it, and then they look back the way that I just explained that scenario, it looks like that. These zeros on election years, and then 7s and 8s and 9s on non-election years.
There's beginning. You believe there's becoming a trend.
It's happenstance that people are really becoming annoyed with.
But you're not going as far to say you think that's what happened.
I'm almost 100% certain I don't think that happened.
Okay.
I really don't. I genuinely believe that someone found it.
Well, then if you don't believe it happened, why would you say it then?
No, I don't believe it happened maliciously. It definitely happened. I don't believe that they intentionally
on one hand, you're saying it doesn't look malicious. On the other hand, you're saying, but it's convenient that it keeps showing up on election years. So you're almost implying that it is done maliciously.
Yeah, two different scenarios. So let me be really clear. The actual mistake was non-malicious, in my opinion.
Okay.
The actual presentation of where it was this year
so the cover-up
was malicious.
Oh, so you feel the cover-up was done on purpose?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Okay.
I think for sure they knew.
That part has not been clear here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. So
you believe they made a mistake, and it was an honest mistake.
Yeah.
Correct.
They discovered this mistake during an election year and decided to push it to next year so that it would look better for re-election purposes.
Correct. When they went out and said
That's quite a charge.
$1.1 million of our pension is uncontrollable. I can't believe it. You won't believe that pension went up. I believe 100% that they knew that there was a $700,000 error they were correcting.
I will.
Not real pension.
We're going to go after and see if we can get the comptroller's office and the mayor on to talk about this. So
I'd love to hear from him. I mean, please, and do me a favor if you could. Have him actually answer the question and not talk about 11 properties that he sold. I would love to hear the answer as to what happened and why that $700,000 was missing first, and now not brought up to the public when you gave your presentation.
It's going to be very hard to. It's going to be very hard to explain. You can easily explain away last year. We didn't catch it until later, unless you can prove differently. But this year, if you know it happened, but you haven't told the public why there's such a shortfall. Well, that's going to be hard to explain away.
That's what I'd like to know. And not last year, this year.
Right.
Why did you tell the people that it was 1.1?
Because we know what last year's answer is going to be. Well, we didn't catch it last year.
No, and I agree. I didn't catch it either.
Right.
I'm in the same
position. Well,
position.
you earlier just said you think they did catch it, but they held it back.
I'm sorry if I made you think that. I don't think that they caught it last year.
Now I am really confused.
Yeah, they caught it this January.
Okay.
This January, when they were preparing their budget, they said, hey,
so
by the
way.
So the
malicious activity is hiding it from us this year.
That's my charge.
Okay. All right. It took us a long way to get around the block.
I'm sorry.
Here,
No. Look,
but
again,
we got there.
It's a big
there.
mistake. It is a big mistake, and I really do believe because of that mistake, whatever the intentions were originally, right?
Yeah.
Not malicious originally, they should have came out this year. I would have been more comfortable in saying, look, now it's going up $400,000. Pension's going up $400,000 because our payroll's going up by X amount. But we have a $700,000 mistake. Don't know why it happened.
How did you find out?
Well, I mean, again, it was simple math to figure it out. Pension going up $1.1 million on a payroll increase of $500,000 doesn't make sense unless the increase
went. And as an accountant, you dug in, and that's where you discovered where the mistake was made.
I think as a fifth-grade mathematician, it's real easy to find. That's what I mean. It was just so easy. And then, looking in and calling the comptroller's office saying, hey, did pension costs increase by 10, 20%? The answer was no. They went down. So then when you look back, and that's where I say Samantha looked into it, that's where the error occurred.
All right, Joe Marino, very interesting.